هو الآن. بسم الله.
نبدأ من هنا كذلك.
تفضل أخي الفاضل المبارك.
جزاك الله خير.
مشوا أخي. It's good to see you.
شرفتنا أنت.
لا، شرف يأتي من قبلكم.
لا أبدا.
Just push the blue button. Just push the blue button.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أرسله الله تعالى بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره الكافرون ولو كره المشركون ولو كره المجرمون. صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. In our previous lesson, we were explaining some of the names, titles, traits, qualities of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Asma'uhu alayhi salatu wasalam, wa sifatuhu, wa alqabuhu. His names, qualities, and characteristics. Names of the Messenger of Allah, other than the Messenger of Allah and other than Muhammad. And some of the meanings of those names, and some of the depth, and some of the dimensions of those names. And we know the symbolicism of the name. The symbolicism of the name in Islam and outside of Islam. We know that for sure. In the Quran and the Sunnah. We know in the streets, you join a gang, you join a clique, you get with somebody, you run with somebody, you do what? You have a what? You have a name, a nickname. Or your actual name, you have a reputation that speaks for you, speaks volumes before you get there. You understand this? Name is extremely symbolic. And how many people leech, and many people may, like sometimes be parasitic off of someone just because of someone else's name. They know you, they fear you, they respect you, they trust you. I'm not built like that at all, but I'm riding with you. I'm not even your friend, I'm not even with you, but I'm going to use your name. You don't know about it. The sheer fact they hear your name, leave him, let him be. You don't understand? This name is extremely powerful in the deen and outside of the deen. It's something that everybody can agree on, the importance and the symbolicism of a name. So some of the names of the Prophet, we mentioned that in the previous class. Here, on page 19, Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, Ummuhu, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وأم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم آمنة بنت وهب أو آمنة بنت وهب ابن عبد مناف ابن زهرة ابن كلاب ابن مرة ابن كعب ابن لؤي ابن غالب. He says the mother of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his mother. Now why doesn't he mention his father? He previously mentioned his father when he mentioned his name, Muhammad ibn Abdullah, and his nasab, his genealogy, his background. So his mother, who was his mother? Obviously, the mother is important and symbolic as well. The mother is important and symbolic as well. Who raised him? Whose blood does he have? Whose DNA does he have? From where did he come? What stock did a person come from? Your mother, your father is vitally important. And oftentimes we go extreme. And to think that knowing yourself and knowing where you come from, and knowing your people, and knowing your lineage and your heritage is automatic jahiliyyah, or racism, or prejudice, or nationalism. That's incorrect. That's incorrect. Whether what's wrong is to go extreme in that. And to think that you're better than someone just because of your background, and just because of your family name, and just because of your orientation, or the color of your skin, or your section, or town, or whatever. But to know where you're from, and to have acknowledgement of that, and to be happy and to take the proper meaning of pride in where you come from is not necessarily wrong in Islam. Allah Azza wa Jalla clearly mentions that He made us into tribes and clans, families and groups, لِتَعَرَفُوا, for you to know each other, for you to know who you are. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also mentioned in the Quran Kareem, from His signs is the difference of the tongue, the difference of the dialect, the difference of the speech, of the language, the difference of the color. So oftentimes people, they run from something and they run so hard and so far, they run to another extreme. They run to what? Another extreme. And the same applies to cultural values and cultural norms. The Quran was sent down to kill the cancer of the Arabs of Jahiliyyah. And practices that you may not understand. You may not be able to conceptualize, but they were normal day-to-day practices of who? Of the Chinese, of the Africans, of the Greeks, of the Romans, of the who? Of the Arabs. And that was a rule in Islam to this day, such as burying your daughter alive. As we mentioned in today's khutbah, burying one's daughter alive. Who will bury their daughter alive? How many countries fought and raided and marauded and plundered? From the east to the west, that was the culture, which it is to this day, but it's different now. But fighting and dying and killing, that was the norm. But how many other people killed their young daughters, their girl children? But to the Arabs, that was a cultural norm. And Allah Azza wa Jalla, He sent down legislation abolishing and prohibiting that cultural norm. But He did address it. And if a person has no sense, or no idea, or no understanding of his background and his lineage at all, how can he deal with the social cancers that he faces? So oftentimes people, they run from reality because reality hurts. And reality is bitter. And anything which would numb your senses and stimulate your mind and take your eyes off of the problems that are in front of you, we run to it, clutch, and we grab onto it because it's convenient. But that's not the teaching of the Quran and the Sunnah. And from that is to know your background, to know where you come from, your roots, your family. You understand this? There's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's in that light, and as long as it is in a balanced manner and it's controlled. It's what? Controlled. And the shaitan, he cares not which of the two sides of extremism you're on. He doesn't care. If you're far right or far left, he doesn't care. As long as you're extreme. As long as he pushes you away from the middle course. Everyone understand this? The what? The middle course. The ulama of Islam, they have used this principle to prove that the following hadith is a total lie. And it's totally baseless. Even though it's a famous hadith, a popular tradition, in which the Prophet ﷺ is quoted to have said, حُبُّ الْوَطَنِ مِنَ الْإِيمَانِ. حُبُّ الْوَطَنِ مِنَ الْإِيمَانِ. Loving one's country, loving one's town, loving one's city is an act of faith. The scholars of Islam, they say from the things which prove that this hadith is a lie, is that loving one's town, one's nation, one's country is natural. It's natural. And it doesn't need faith for you to have a natural inclination towards where you're from, and to like the foods from where you're from, and to have a certain amount of respect and a sense of worth and pride, quote unquote, where you're from. There's nothing wrong with that. This is my city, this is where I'm from, so there's nothing wrong with that. So the Prophet, he never said that, because that's not the prophetic style. Loving your country is from faith. That doesn't need an act of faith to love one's country. Everyone understand this? That's what? That's natural. And to know your background is also what? Natural. And to keep your ties of family and lineage and kin is also what? And anyone who calls to discarding that, absolutely, and abandoning that, absolutely, they're calling to something which is what? Unnatural. And if it's unnatural, it cannot be Islam. If it is unnatural, then it cannot be what? It cannot be Islam. There's nothing in Islam that goes against the nature of how Allah created the human being. Abadan. Abadan. Allah clearly mentions, we have made man fi ahsanin taqweem, in the most perfect manner. And the only reason why he mentioned that is to show that there's no clash with his legislation and how he made the human being. You understand this? Islam wishes to refine, it wishes to discipline, it wishes to have someone in line, but it doesn't wish to take you and strip you from your natural things. There's no hadith saying don't sleep. There's no hadith saying don't eat, don't drink. There's no hadith saying don't fulfill your sexual desires. There's no hadith that says this, because all of those things are going against the nature of the human being. Basic needs. You understand this? So we have to be mindful of these things. And we read the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ, and the lineage of this Imam, and of this Imam, and where he came from. Fulan ibn Fulan, ibn Fulan, ibn Fulan, al-Fulani al-Alani. Why do you think they do that? You can't read the name of any Imam except that it's Ibn such and such. Ibn Abdul Wahab. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahab. No one says Imam Muhammad. Abdul Aziz ibn Baz. Sheikh ibn Uthaymeen. Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Al-Qayyim. وهكذا. Everyone understand this? So we have to understand the deen and also common sense. And if we forsake the teachings of the deen in a pure, organic way, and also forsake common sense, we will continue to be lost. We'll continue to be lost. And we ask Allah to protect us from being lost. So he says his mother was Amina. That's her first name, Amina. And this is something that every child should know. Every young Muslim should know. Who's the Prophet's mother? Amina. If you can memorize bint Wahab, then that's even better. But at least know the first name of his mother. Amina bint Wahab. Amina, the daughter of Wahab. And then in Nawawi he mentions some of her genealogy, which obviously is similar to the Prophet ﷺ, to the end of Ibn Ghalib. Then he says, Wiladatu, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. ولد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عام الفيل وقيل بعده ب30 سنة قال الحاكم أبو أحمد وقيل بعده ب40 سنة وقيل بعده ب10 سنين رواه الحافظ أبو القاسم بن عساكر في تاريخ دمشق والصحيح المشهور أنه ولد عام الفيل. He says here the Prophet ﷺ's birth. When was he born? When was the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam born? So he's speaking to a non-Muslim. Your grandmother, your mother, your co-worker, your employee, your employer, your professor at school, your classmate. That says, when was your prophet born? In the Christian calendar, the common era, what would you say? What is the date of the prophet's birth? Monday.
I'm talking to the Christian.
Tell you, Monday. What year?
The year of the elephant.
We fell already. The plane didn't even get off the runway. What year was the prophet born in?
610.
610 of the common era. Tell you. Anybody else? Everybody agree on that? 610?
One.
What year was the prophet ﷺ what? Born. That's the question. Fadl. Right hand.
Oh, sorry.
Never the left hand. Come back to you. You know better than that. You know better than that. You know better than that. What year was the prophet born in? Everybody agree 610?
No.
Fadl.
570.
570? So the
570.
6th century or the 5th century or the 7th century? Which one is the problem now?
The 6th century. Is one.
The 6th,
Yes.
without a doubt.
Yeah, but that's it.
Bila shak. Okay. What's the exact date?
12th of Rabi Awal.
You're talking to a non-Muslim who doesn't know Rabi Awal. The Viking calendar. Leif Erikson. Everybody understand this? The common error. Fadl. Brothers, sisters, anybody online? Nobody knows when the Prophet ﷺ was born in the non-Muslim timetable? Nobody? Anyone? Everybody agree on 610?
No.
Fadl.
570, 571.
570 to 571
Common era.
of the common era. Tight. Okay. And what does that equate to with regards to the lunar calendar? Because there is no hijrah. There was no hijrah at this time. So we have a different time scale now, a different timeline, a different method of chronologically keeping track of things. What would you call that? It's a very important tool for understanding and teaching the seerah. Understanding it yourself and teaching it to others. Yalla. How many scales do we have? How many calendars do we have? One we know for sure, which is the hijrah. There's no doubt. We have, after the Prophet went to Medina, he stayed in Medina for approximately 10 to 11 years. 40 of the hijrah, he died 20, he died 200 of the hijrah, Imam Ahmad died of the hijrah. That's one calendar. There are other calendars.
Is it called the Georgians?
Gregorian.
Nah, that's the common era.
That's common era?
Oh, the Jewish calendar.
La, the Muslims didn't deal with them.
Oh,
Or we're not even talking about Islam, excuse me, but that's they were a minority. The Jews were a minority in Arabia. They were a minority. Hold on. I'm listening. It's very common sense. When I give you the answer, you're gonna smack yourselves. Not the Chinese calendar.
You talking about what
That could be used, but that's not the answer.
You mean what other calendar was used by them or at that time?
Very simple. All right, so the first piece of time or the timeline, la, is after the hijrah. So obviously, after the hijrah, there has to be a what?
Before they
BC.
Before the hijrah, right? But that's too open, because before the hijrah could go to 500 BC AD, so it has to be something that comes before the hijrah. And that's what? بعد البعثة, after he was sent as a prophet and a messenger.
Oh,
بعد البعثة, البعثة, the dispatchment. So, him being a messenger and a prophet, that's one point. All the way up until when he did what? Made hijrah. That's one calendar, that's one piece of time. When he made hijrah until he died. You understand this? And obviously, there has to be a time scale or a timeline before he was made a prophet and a messenger. Everyone understand this? Everybody clear on this or not? This is extremely helpful and practical. So the prophet was born in the year of the elephant, and that was obviously before the Bi'tha, before he was sent, for sure, before he was when he was born. You understand this? So we have one timeline, one time scale, right? The year of the elephant, approximately. Well, you say 570, 571, etc. I'm with him. Then we have after that.
40 years.
There you go.
40 years.
So after the year of the elephant, up until when? 40. And then when it became 40, that began the Bi'tha. And then from the prophethood, the messengerhood, the messengership, the Bi'tha to the Hijrah. And then was what? You understand this? It's simple. If you just think about it. Just think, it's very simple. Trust me. You have children? Okay, how many children you have? Okay, so you have 6 kids, mashallah. So your oldest daughter or son that says, Abby or Dad, when did you do this? When did you get this job? What happened to your hand? You got a scar. When did you cut yourself? When? Well, I got this when such and such was born. And I got that when what? After such and such was born. You can scale the time based off of what? Your children. You understand this? Everybody understand that? Like eras, Bronze Era, Stone Age, Ice Age, etc. Everybody understand that? Very important. And this is why the ulama of Islam, they say, is that there are many issues in the Sharia and the Deen that cannot be understood unless you have knowledge of other things and of other sciences. How can you find the Qibla if you don't know the basics of what? Navigation, astronomy, even astrology. Because the astronomy and directions and things are based off of what? Everyone understand this? What's the North Star? Everyone understand this? It's very important. How do you know when a woman is of age and she gets a menstruation or not? Unless you know basic things of what? Biology, the anatomy, puberty. If a boy has an Adam's apple, is he of age? Or does he have to get pubic hair? His voice is there's different signs when a person reaches adulthood in Islam. And if you know nothing of these basic things, then you're not going to be able to apply those ayats and those hadith about what? Someone being of age. Everyone understand this? And there are many other issues as well. Many other what? Is buying and selling. If you can't count, how can you buy and sell in Islam? How do you know what's the sa'd, what's the mud, etc.? So there are many things in the deen which cannot be properly understood except with what? Other sciences of the dunya. Everybody understand that? Everybody got this? Tayyib. And from that is that of time and calculation. Everybody got this? So the Prophet ﷺ was born during the year which is called Amul Fil, the year of the elephant. And we know that the Arabs, like many other civilizations and societies, they didn't necessarily keep track of the dates with time or with numbers, but with happenings and events. And we know there are other calendars, let's say the ancient Chinese, all right, the year of the rat, the year of this, the year of that. Are we understanding this? So they said the year of the elephant, meaning that was the biggest and most important thing that happened during that year. And that was when that haughty Abyssinian general he intended to destroy the sacred house of Allah Azza wa Jalla, the Kaaba, with that terrible army of elephants. And Allah Azza wa Jalla, he destroyed him and his army. Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. Have you not seen how your Lord destroyed the army of elephants? So during that year, that was when the Prophet ﷺ was born. So what is the importance of that? Why did Allah Azza wa Jalla choose to allow him to come into this world in the same year in which he destroyed those people? That has to what? It has to mean something. That has to be extremely symbolic. That Allah will protect his deen, protect his religion. And he will destroy the enemies and vanquish the adversaries of his deen and of his religion. I would understand it's like the Prophet ﷺ was protected from his enemies and his adversaries. And in many other wisdoms as well, from them which we know of, and from them which we what? Know of them not. I would understand this? There are no accidents. There are no what? There are no accidents. So that's when the Prophet ﷺ was born. Other scholars, they have different views. Some say 30 years afterwards, some say 40 years afterwards, etc. The correct view is that it was during the year of the what? Elephant, which is equivalent to what year in the common era? Approximately. You understand this? وهكذا. طيب. He then says here, ونقل إبراهيم بن المنذر الحازمي شيخ البخاري وخليفة بن خياط وآخرون الإجماع عليه واتفقوا على أنه ولد يوم الاثنين من شهر ربيع الأول. He says, and there are certain scholars such as Ibrahim ibn al-Munzir al-Hazimi, the teacher of Bukhari, and a famous historian whose name was Khalifa ibn Khayyat, they have mentioned that there's consensus that he was born during the year of the elephant. Even if it's not consensus, that's the strongest view. You understand this? And they also have agreed that he was born on Monday, Al-Ithnain, right? From the month of Rabi'ul Awwal. What month and date in the common era? Now Muslims have kept track of this as well.
This month right now.
What month is this? La, you said non-Muslims, ya akhi.
Well, this month is November.
November. So was the Prophet born in November?
No, it don't line up like that.
So what month was it? We should know this. You can find this online.
August.
August. Everybody agree on August? La, Abu Sajid says no. April. You agree on April? You agree on April. What day on April? The 22nd. Allahu Akbar. Tayyib. Khairan inshallah. Sisters outdoing the brothers. As usual. He says, واختلفوا هل في اليوم الثاني أم الثامن أم العاشر أم الثاني عشر فهذه أربعة أقوال مشهورة. And then they differ on what specific day he was born in this month. For sure it was Monday and Rabi' al-Awwal. And the children should also know the Islamic calendar as well. Alright? You should know the Islamic calendar as well. But they differ on what day in which he was born. Was it on the 2nd day of Rabi' al-Awwal, the 8th day, the 10th day, or the 12th day? 4 well-known views. And this goes to show you how much difference of opinion there is on these different issues. Especially something like history. Especially something like what? History. Right. So that's when the Prophet ﷺ was born. And those are some of the benefits pertaining to his birth and the date and the symbolicism of it. Moving forward, he says here, وَفَاتُهُ sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When did the Prophet ﷺ die? توفي صلى الله عليه وسلم ضحى يوم الاثنين لاثنتي عشرة ليلة خلت من شهر ربيع الأول سنة 11 من الهجرة ومنها ابتداء تاريخي كما سبق. He says the Prophet ﷺ, he died duhan, in the morning of Monday. Allah gave him life on Monday, outside of his mother's womb, of course, because the baby is alive in the mother's womb. And he also took his life on what? Monday. What's the symbolicism on Monday? Abu Zubaydah, huh? What's so special about Monday? Huh? Only Allah knows what's so special about what? About a Monday. And this was the 12th night of the same month, Rabi' al-Awwal. The 12th night of the what? Of the same month. Naam. Tayyib, and this was the 11th year of the Hijrah. The 11th year of the what? Meaning 11 years after he left his hometown of Mecca and that's when the Muslims began the what? The Hijri calendar. That's when they began the what? The Hijri calendar. Moving forward. He says, now obviously that's a major discussion with regards to the Prophet's death. And unfortunately there are many Muslims who have extremes and erroneous views and opinions regarding the Prophet ﷺ dying. Some of them may say that the Prophet never died. And if you say that he died, then it's disrespect to the Prophet. And you're a Wahhabi. And you have no respect for the Messenger of Allah to say that he died. How could he die? How could you say this? He was made from light, brother. Light doesn't what? Doesn't die. They may say this. What's important is is that we believe and we know in our aqidah is that the Prophet said what? إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ مَيِّتُونَ. Allah says that indeed you will die and they will die, and then you'll be resurrected in front of Allah and you will fight and argue in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. تَخْتَصِمُونَ. You understand? You'll be resurrected. Allah Azza wa Jal will bring you and you will be standing in front of Allah for your deeds. And everyone will be scratching and clawing and surviving for his what? For his own self. I don't understand this. Your most beloved son, your close wife, your husband, family members, on that day won't mean what? Not much at all. When you're standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the beauty of Islam, لا يا أخي إيش هذا؟ ما في أستأذن يا أخي. What is this? الله المستعان. بارك الله فيكم. نراكم على خير. في أمان الله. طيب, the concept of your children being in Jannah, and if a parent is on a higher station than his child, what would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? What does the Quran speak about someone being bumped up? Just for them to be with their family in paradise. We don't have time to discuss that right now. Moving forward, he says, دَفْنُهُ وَعُمُرُهُ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمُ. When the Prophet ﷺ was buried, how he was buried, where he was buried, and how old was he when he died, alayhi salatu wasalam. وَدُفِنَ يَوْمَ الثُّلَثَاءِ حِينَ زَالَتِ الشَّمْسِ وقيل ليلة الأربعاء وتوفي صلى الله عليه وسلم وله 63 سنة وقيل 65 سنة وقيل 60 سنة والأول أصح وأشهر وقد جاءت الأقوال الثلاثة في الصحيح. قال العلماء الجمع بين الروايات أن من روى 60 لم يعد معها الكسور، ومن روى 65 عد سنة المولد والوفاة، ومن روى 63 لم يعدهما. He says the Prophet ﷺ was buried on Tuesday. He was buried on Tuesday. حين زالت الشمس, in the noontime. Not in the morning, but in the noon. After the sun began to lean towards the west. When Dhuhr time was coming in. Some say Wednesday. When the Prophet ﷺ died, he was 63 years old. 63. He was 63. And some say 65. And others say he was 60. But the correct view is that he was 63. He was 63 years old at the time of death. All three of these ages have been mentioned in the authentic ahadith, the Bukhari and Muslim. So as if we have a problem now. One says 63, one hadith says 65, and one hadith says what? 60. And all of those hadiths are in Bukhari and Muslim. So it's a problem now. Did someone lie? Did someone make a mistake? How do we solve this issue? Nawawi rahimahullah, he says, the ulama, they say, to harmonize between these conflicting dates or ages, he says, أَنَّ مَنْ رَوَى, he says, those who say 60 years old, they kept it at the what? The lowest number. 60, 61, 60. For sure is what? 60. So it doesn't deny or reject or clash with those who say 63, 64, 65. Everyone understand this? He says, and whoever said 65, he counted the year in which he was born and the year in which he what? Died. Everyone understand this? The fiqh, and those who say 63 didn't what? Didn't count those two. Look how simple this is. Like what? A cup of water. Everyone understand this? But with the proper what? Ilm. Proper ilm. And thus, any doubt that the people bring about Islam or the Quran or the Hadith or the Seerah, with the proper sword and the proper swordsman, it can be what? Cut right through. Everyone understand this? But with the improper sword, different story. Or the untrained swordsman is what? Different story. Rather, you might get cut yourself. You may hurt yourself. You may apostate from Islam while the other did that. It'll cause people to leave Islam, taking on Christians, debating with Christians, debating atheists. And you yourself have not been properly trained. And even if you have been properly trained, they're what? They're leftists. And there lies no doubt. Don't think that all of the non-Muslims are just stupid and foolish and silly. You have people who literally study Islam more than some Muslims. You have people who spend millions of dollars for formal education to be done on Islam. and Bukhari and Tafsir Ibn Jarir and this and that to find fault and to cause doubt. There's no question about that. So don't think that every single issue or every single person is just, easy, simple, Joe Blow and that's it. Lie. It's dangerous. It's what? It's dangerous. So you have to be mindful of this. But the true swordsman with the true sword is what? It's going to cut through anything that they try to bring against the Quran and the Sunnah. With that being said, the next issue he says, وَالصَّحِيث 63 وكذا الصحيح في سن أبي بكر وعمر وعلي وعائشة رضي الله عنهم 63 سنة. He says, so 63 is the proper age of his death, or the proper his proper age when he died, alayhi salatu wasalam. And this is also the correct view with regards to how old Abu Bakr was when he died. Very interesting fact that they died at the same age, and the same applies to Umar and Ali and Aisha. All of them died what? 63. Khairan inshaAllah ta'ala. He says here, قال الحاكم أبو أحمد وشيخ الحاكم أبي عبد الله يقال ولد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يوم الاثنين ونبئ يوم الاثنين وهاجر من مكة يوم الاثنين ودخل المدينة يوم الاثنين وتوفي يوم الاثنين وروي عنه صلى الله عليه وسلم ولد مختونا مسرورا. Al-Hakim Abu Ahmad, the teacher of Abu Abdullah Naysaburi, the author of Mustadrak Hadith compilation, he says that the Prophet was born on Monday, and he was made a prophet on Monday, and he made hijrah from Mecca to Medina on Monday. He entered Medina on Monday, and he died on Monday. And it's also mentioned, he says Ruya, it's mentioned, not necessarily authentic, that the Prophet was born circumcised. He didn't need to be circumcised. He was never circumcised, and he was also, his umbilical cord was already cut and severed when he came out of the womb. Don't understand this? Some of the ulama, they say this. And there's a hadith that states this. The hadith is not sahih. It's not authentic. But it doesn't mean that it's not true. Okay? Allah Azza wa Jalla is able to do all things. He's able to do what? All things. The ulama of Islam, they also say that if that hadith was true, or if that was accurate historically, there were other people that were born and they didn't need circumcision. So it's not specific to the Prophet. It's not what? It's not specific to the Messenger of Allah to be born without circumcision. Obviously here we have in the footnotes some fawaid with regards to the Prophet's circumcision. He says, كذا قال الإمام ابن القيم وذكر قولا ثالثا في ختانه صلى الله عليه وسلم وهو أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم ختن يوم شق قلبه أو يوم شق قلبه أو يوم شق قلبه الملائكة عند مرضعته إلى آخره. His others that said he was circumcised when the angels cut open his chest, and others that say he was circumcised on the 7th day, right? And Abdul Muttalib made a banquet and a celebration and gave him the name what? Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam on that day. The concept of circumcision in Islam is a very long discussion. And we all know the importance and the significance of circumcision in Islam. You understand this? Circumcision was one of the ways that some of the Muslims would distinguish who was a Muslim and who was a non-Muslim on the battlefield. When they were killed or they were martyred, who was buried, who gets the janazah, who is treated like a Muslim, right? From circumcision. Like people, they identify people what? Through their teeth today. Or their fingerprints, right? Their dental records. Back then it wasn't necessarily like that. So an easy, simple way was what? Who was circumcised. In other words, the Muslims what? So, circumcised. And it was a thing in which they said that it was the practice of the Muslims and or the Jews of Arabia. That's it. As far as the mushrikun and things like this, that they didn't necessarily get circumcised. Now, we know that the ulama of Islam, they differ on the ruling of circumcision for men and for women. For men and for women. Is it obligatory for a man to get circumcised when he's born? Hey, do you have to circumcise your son? Or is it just recommended? If you accept Islam and you are a Christian or some other type of religion or faith and you're uncircumcised, do you have to get circumcised? Is it obligatory for you to get surgery and become circumcised? Or is it just recommended? What am I different? And a very long discussion on that. Those who say that it's obligatory, they use different proofs and evidences. From those proofs and evidences is Allah Azza wa Jalla's statement, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَىٰ إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَأَتَمَّهُنَّ. And remember when Allah tested and challenged Abraham with words. And Abraham, he complied. Atamahun, he perfected that test. And some of the ulama, they say that from those things that Allah tested him with was circumcision. And there's certain narrations that state that he circumcised himself at the age of 80. I don't understand this? 80 years old. Right? Others, they say that circumcision must be done because it's a means of purity and purification. And if you don't circumcise yourself, then it is very likely that you will have filth, najasa, on your private area and your underpants when you pray. And this is one of the conditions of the salah, is that وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. You have to be clean physically and spiritually when you pray. Right? Other ulama, they say no, it's only recommended. And from the proofs and evidences that they use is that they say it is a means of pain and torment. It's a means of pain and torment. It's a means of bloodshed for the Muslim whose blood is sacred and there's no specific dalil to prove it. And we have specific dalil which is conclusive that a Muslim's blood is what? Sacred. And it's unlawful to harm and to annoy a Muslim unless there's a proof that states otherwise. You understand this? Others they say, before we get to you, others they say, such as Hassan al-Basri, the proof that circumcision isn't obligatory is that it hasn't been mentioned. And there were countless people who accepted Islam in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Hassan al-Basri said, the black and the red, the yellow and the white, and it has not been mentioned that the Prophet what? Told them specifically what? Get circumcised. I'm with him. We're not here to discuss that in detail. That's in brief. As far as a female getting circumcised, then there are three main views of the ulama of Islam. The first view is that it's recommended. Is that it's what? Recommended, not obligatory. That's the view of most of the ulama of Islam. Most of the ulama of Islam say that it's recommended. And then other ulama will say, a very small minority, some Shafi'i ulama, perhaps some of them may say Shafi'i said it, al-muhim ba'd al-Shafi'iyya, is that it's obligatory for a woman to get circumcised. And then others who say that a woman should not get circumcised. There's no specific proof to prove it. The wisdom behind it doesn't necessarily apply, etc. We've explained this in detail on HadithDisciple, female circumcision in light of the authentic sunnah. We've explained this in detail. A detailed discussion of does a woman have to get circumcised? Should a woman get circumcised? And if a woman does get circumcised, what is to be cut from her private area? Is it female genital mutilation, female genital cutting? And that's a very long, controversial discussion. And it's one of the means and the ways that people use or attack Islam. They attack Islam. And unfortunately, through ignorance and through bid'ah, innovation, and through dominance of one's culture, there are some people who go extreme and they go beyond the boundaries. And they may have jealousy and a sense of overzealousness or a sense of care and honor and pride for their women that pushes them to the extreme in which they may do something to a woman's body which is not from Islam and harmful to a woman's body and causes hatred and malice in the hearts of many women to leave Islam. And they say, look what they did to me. Look what they cut from me. The pain that I have to go through, the sickness, the infections, and the list goes on. And the process in itself that's done in many, many countries is quite gruesome. And that's not necessarily what's meant by those ulama who say that a female should be circumcised. It's something which is slight. It's something which is what? Slight. And we've explained in the lecture what is the authentic dalil. Is it recommended or not? Khair inshallah. Moving forward, we're not here to discuss that any further. He says, وَكُفِّنَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ فِي ثَلَاثَةِ أَثْوَابٍ بِيضٍ لَيْسَ فِيهَا قَمِيصٌ وَلَا إِمَامَةٌ. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he was shrouded in 3 layers of wrapping, 3 layers of cloth, 3 wrappings. And these wrappings of this cloth, it was white. He didn't wear a shirt nor a turban. What's the benefit of them mentioning this? The benefit of them mentioning this is to show you that that was the style and that was the dress of the Muslims and of the Arabs who were Muslims of that time, to wear the imamah, to cover your head, and also to wear a long garment, a qamis, because that's an exception He wasn't put in a qamis and an imamah. Meaning that was the what? That was the asl, that was the default. Everyone understand this? Khairan inshaAllah. He says here, as is mentioned in the Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. قال الحاكم أبو أحمد ولما أدرج رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في أكفانه وضع على سريره على شفير القبر ثم دخل الناس أرسالا يصلون عليه فوجا فوجا لا يؤمهم أحد فأولهم صلاة عليه العباس ثم بنو هاشم ثم المهاجرون ثم الأنصار ثم سائر الناس فلما فرغ الرجال دخل الصبيان ثم النساء ثم الدفن صلى الله عليه وسلم ونزل في حفرته العباس وعلي والفضل وقثم ابن العباس والشقران. He mentions some of the details of the Prophet ﷺ's burial and how the people prayed over him and how there were so many people who prayed over him that they had to take turns. And there was a means of seniority or priority of those who prayed first, left, etc. Last but not least is the fact that I want to mention to you regarding the parents of the Prophet ﷺ. Was his mother a Muslim? And was his father a Muslim? You say no. So if they weren't Muslims, where are they going in thereafter? Hypothetically. We don't know specifically where we go, but the general is that they're going where? The hellfire. He said Kaab. Okay. So, you don't think that's disrespectful to the Prophet ﷺ? To say that Allah couldn't save his parents? Allah couldn't give him a miraculous exemption? The Prophet of Islam. It's one way of looking at it. And the third way of looking at it is, did the Prophet ﷺ's parents, or were his parents from Ahlul Fitra, or Ahlul Fatra, the people who lived in a time in which there was no message, in which there was no specific prophet or messenger, and they were excused from believing? I.e., for Allah to send them to the hellfire will be unjust, and they'll be punished without being fairly warned. So we have three views, three ways of looking at it. Number one, the Prophet's parents were mushrikun, and the mushrikun will go to the fire. Number two, the Prophet's parents were mushrikun, but Allah Azza wa Jalla honored the Prophet of Islam and saved his parents from the fire of hell. Everyone understand this? An exemption to the rule. We're closed, but because you're such and such, or you know such and such, I'm going to let you in. But technically we're closed. Right? And the third way of looking at it is that the Prophet and his parents were mushrikun, but they were in a time period in which there was just a pause. There was no clear warning that came to them. Which of the three is correct?
Number three.
And why? Number three, why? Was no one there to tell him? Tayyib. Anybody else? Everyone agree with number three?
No, I think it's number one.
Number one.
And I was mentioning a couple of reasons why.
Fadal.
Because of the hadith, when the people who have a valid excuse will see Allah on the day of judgment, and he will tell them to enter the fire. And those of them who enter it, it will become cool for them. And those of them who didn't enter it, they wouldn't listen to Allah on this earth anyway. That's one reason. The second reason, I say number one, is because you could be put through hardships in this life as a means of expiation for some sins you commit in this life. And you know, just makes them rank due to that. And it probably was hard on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to know that, but he's going to be in the highest station of Jannah.
Jazakallah khairan. He defended his argument with proofs and evidences. Fadal ya akhi.
I can't remember like exactly what I read it, but it was like a hadith that said that something was on a journey and he got off like his camel and he stopped and he was crying.
Okay.
And he asked him whatever he said was a grave of my mother.
Okay. Keep going.
I don't really know.
You got it. Keep going. He stopped at his mother's grave. Then what? It got to be something more. Keep going.
I think he made dua.
That's what we want. We want you to what? Give what you got. Give what you what? Don't be scared. Right. There's no sin if you say I think. Right? You're clearly saying what you think. You're not saying this is a fatwa, this is the ruling of Allah and His Messenger. This is a classroom. Right? Al-Yameen.
Oh.
You off the ya akhi. Allahul musta'an, ya akhi.
No, I got
You got to get used to it, huh? The proper adab, huh?
I'm sorry.
Al-Muhim. Hadith that we read from Sahih Muslim, the Nawawi, he says about it, the hadith of Anas, that a man said, Ya Rasulullah, ayna abi? Qala fi an-nar. فلما قف دعاه فقال إن أبي وأباك في النار. حديث قال النووي فيه أن من مات على الكفر فهو في النار ولا تنفعه قرابة المقربين، وفيه أن من مات في الفترة على ما كانت عليه العرب من عبادة الأوثان فهو من أهل النار، وليس هذا مؤاخذة قبل بلوغ الدعوة، فإن هؤلاء كان قد بلغتهم دعوة إبراهيم وغيره من الأنبياء صلوات الله تعالى وسلامه عليهم. No, he says about this hadith, the hadith of Anas in Sahih Muslim, that one day a man asked the Prophet, where's my father? And the Prophet said, he's in the nar, the fire. So the man walked away, as if the man was upset or distraught or disheartened. And look at this beautiful hadith, how the Prophet ﷺ cared about people's feelings. Listen to this hadith, this tarbiyah. There is never a clash between the truth and being rude and crushing someone's feelings unnecessarily. Listen to this hadith. The truth was that the man's father was where? In the fire. That's the haqq. Can't bend or twist or warp that. Malish. I'm sorry. But that doesn't mean that you have to be inconsiderate to someone's what? Feelings, and say it in a nasty, harsh way. So the man turned away and he walked away. And the Prophet called him back. And he said what? My father and my mother what? Also in the fire. In other words, don't feel sad. Oh man, I lost this, I lost that. Say, look, I lost a son too. I was locked up too. I had this injury what? Too. That's when immediately do what? No question. Wow, the Prophet of Islam. You understand this? So look at this. This is a tremendous hadith of the Prophet to show his akhlaq. And we benefit in da'wah and tarbiyah. Like I'm saying, so is that the truth and being hardcore on the truth. It does not mean that you have to do what? Be inconsiderate of someone's what? Feelings. You understand this? This is the organic, right from the ground. This is the akhlaq and the adab of da'wah. Here. Don't compromise the truth. But it doesn't mean that you have to be nasty and rude. You understand this? And whether this person is right or wrong, guided or misguided, you're still nasty. And you still have filthy akhlaq. And you're still jealous and envious. Whether this person is on the sunnah or off it or not, you're still ignorant. That's the fact. So just think about that for a second. Do you pray at night? Do you fast? If I lined up 20 people, 100 people, what would they say about you and your character? If we had an interview with your wife, what would she say about your character? Your children? Do your children run from you when you come in the house, or they run towards you? This is reality. But the shaitan, obviously, he's a master at tricking people and getting them to forget about these basic points. Your nastiness, your envy, your hasad, the filth has nothing to do with the way of the Salaf Salih. Everyone understand this? Just like people, they disguise and they mask their racism and their prejudice and their colorism through a madhab. My madhab, we don't touch feet. My madhab, we don't do this. My madhab, I just, no way. Don't blame Abu Hanif or Ahmed because you don't want to be around someone because of their race. Or you find someone disgusting because of what they look like. Don't make that lie. You understand this? So you have to be mindful of this. Right. No, he says, this hadith proves that whoever dies upon kufr is in the fire. And the relationship of his relatives and close family members will not help him. Will not help him. And it also proves that those who died in the fatra, the period, in which there was no specific warning or message, the Arabs, they worshipped idols, he says they will also go to the fire. Is that what all of the ulama say? Or is that just one view or what a no? That's what Nawawi says. Do other ulama say differently? Otherwise, Nawawi says, Ahlul Fatra, if they were making shirk like the Arabs of the time, then what? He says, then they'll be in the fire. Waliyadu billah. And this does not mean, he says it does not mean that Allah is punishing people before da'wah has reached them. And that's because these people had the da'wah of Ibrahim and Ismail. Very interesting discussion here. He said, what? There's no excuse. The forefathers want you. Monotheism was known. All right? We're not here to discuss this in detail. These issues, al-muhim, yani, the very important issue, the very dangerous issue with regards to saying that the Prophet's family is not in the fire. Why not? Why can't he be in the fire? Is Ibrahim alayhi salam, where's his father? What does Allah tell us about him? You understand this? So some people, they go extreme. And they love the Prophet, no doubt. Can't say they love the Prophet. But they may go what? They may go extremes. Love and hate, closeness and remoteness, jealousy, all these emotions and feelings all have to be guided through accurate science. That's it. Love someone to death as long as it's what? Accurate. Hate someone as long as it's what? Accurate. That's the only problem. That's the problem between us and between what? You. Is that you do whatever you want to do. You pull things from your bag of tricks. And we have rules, principles. You understand this? It's not about what I feel. It's about science. I cannot oppress you even if I don't like you. I may not like you. I may be jealous. Whatever. I don't like you. But I cannot lie against you. I cannot hide facts and information. And I cannot reject the respect that you demand as a person. I don't like him that much, but he's learned. He's done this. We can't reject that. Other people, it's not necessarily the same rules. There is no science or accuracy. They do whatever they want to do. For those whom they love and those whom they what? Hate. Someone has no qualifications, no credentials, but they love them, they do what? Oh, skyrocket them. Someone that they hate and despise or envy, he has a world of benefit and things that he's done, they do what? Asfal as-safilin. That's not right. Everyone understand this? That's not Islam, nor is that the proper way of living in the dunya. Al-Muhim, this is where we're going to stop tonight, being the title with regards to the lecture. Let's see if we can take a few questions from online, or maybe from some of the brothers and sisters here. I know it's kind of late, and once again, we apologize. Allahumma musta'an. Al-Muhim, Allah Azza wa Jal, He allowed us to benefit, even if it's a little late. Inshallah. So, are there any questions here from the brothers or the sisters? Fadl ya akhi. Wa alaikum assalam.
I had a question like my grandmother, better yet my grandfather. He was born like in the 20s.
Okay.
And that was one of his biggest problems. He said he never heard of Islam. Like he thought it was like a religion of the Arabs.
Okay.
So when he seen like my grandmother left him, like later on in life, she left him with her 11 kids and accepted Islam. To this day, he didn't understand, like, he was basically saying that like he's on a religion of his grandmother and stuff like that, but he said that it wasn't like
it wasn't clear to him.
It wasn't clear to him. That's basically
Clear.
what I'm saying.
Questions regarding my grandfather, who was brought up or lived in the 20s, and he said that he didn't know about Islam and it wasn't clear to him. He thought Islam was the religion of the Arab or the Arabs. And when his wife, your grandmother, accepted Islam and they got separated, etc., she became a Muslim. He didn't. It wasn't clear to him, etc. He said he was on the religion of his forefathers, etc. I'm with him. We don't know what's what and who's who. That's exclusive to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have the outward and the apparent manifestation of things. You understand this? He who dies upon La ilaha Muhammad Rasulullah, we hope for him Jannah. He who dies upon other than La ilaha illallah, the specifics only mentioned in the Quran and Sunnah. Ibrahim is in Jannah. Nuh, Idris, Ilyas, Musa, Isa, the 10 companions, Bilal, Ammar, this companion, that companion. The Prophet said it is in paradise. Other than that, Allahu Alam specifically. But we know the general rule. Alright? As far as someone who died before they heard of Islam or they didn't hear of Islam, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى Allah says we will never punish people until we send a messenger. So that's what Noah was talking about. What's the status of your grandfather? I don't know. I don't know the status of myself. I hope that Allah will forgive me and allow me into Jannah. We don't know. You see what I'm saying to you? So who knew, who didn't know, what was in this country, what was known, what was unknown, that's only known by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And perhaps on the day of judgment, he'll be resurrected and Allah Azza wa Jalla will offer Islam to him and present Islam to him, and inshallah, hopefully, he'll make that decision. Only Allah knows. But it's a big issue. And as we just said, this is not how we study the issue. That was a side fact. Because our class is not on Iman or Tawheed. Our class is on Sirah. Our class is on what? Sirah Nabawiyah. That was just a what? A side fact, a side benefit with regards to the Prophet's parents, whether they Muslim or not. So to study that issue, to dig into that issue, takes a separate class, a separate lecture. What is the ruling on people who died in a time in which Islam was not known? It was unknown in this country. Everyone understand this? What is the ruling on that? This is a real life question. You have to be transparent with yourself. The people who accepted what they thought was Islam in the 40s or the 30s or the 50s, Nation of Islam, Foot of Islam, can you say that they are kuffar and they're going to burn in hell? Or were they Muslims to the knowledge that was presented to them? Allahu Alam. Allah knows best. 2018 is a what? Total different story. Clarity, knowledge, facts, information. But only Allah knows who was sincere and the information that they had. I would understand this, let alone the history of the United States and how there were many Muslims who came to this country. Their religion was stripped from them, literally through violence. Through violence. And the religion was placed on them and forced upon them through violence. So we have to be very mindful and be very careful of these things. But it doesn't mean that it pushes us to go to the extreme. And someone says, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is in paradise. Slow down. We can't say that. What did he do for America, for black and white people, for the world as a whole? You can't deny that. You cannot deny that. But it doesn't mean that we have an exclusive, detailed look into the souls that Allah has placed in. We don't know. Everyone understand it? So you can't push to the other side of the extremism. The other what? What's important is anytime you speak about these issues, it is a must that you have the proper Islamic science, and it's a must that you take into consideration the feelings of the people. And this is why Musa alayhi salam, he didn't even deal with the issue. And this is one of the tricks of Pharaoh. Ma balul qurun al-ula. He says, what about the ancients? The ancient Egyptians. What about them? Moses, are they in the hellfire? Are they misguided too? He uses this as a plot to distract and divert the attention for what Musa was saying. And what did Musa alayhi salatu wasalam say? They're in the fire and they're in paradise. He didn't say none of that. He says, my Lord knows best. My Lord knows best. And that's a way of avoiding a what? Situation. So someone says, what about Malcolm X or Martin Luther King or the civil rights activists? Are they in the hellfire? They didn't know about Islam and this and that? You say what? That's what my Lord. And you don't have to say yes or what? Or no. And who's going to argue with that God knows best? Are we understanding this? So it's very important to have this type of hikmah and smoothness when talking and dealing with these issues. And the same applies to all other heroes in different cultures. There are many. Are you understanding this? Fadl ya akhi.
My question is, when do we give precedence to the kuffar over the Muslim? And like maybe in the maybe we feel like the Muslim are not really helping us, but the kuffar, they are really assisting or supporting us. With a lot of text from the Quran and the Sunnah, can we still give precedence for the kuffar over the Muslim? That is the first one. No, I'm sorry. For the second question is, as a teacher of Hadith, when do we accept the disparagement of a scholar over somebody? What are the conditions for we to accept the disparagement of the scholar?
Clear. First question says, when do we give precedence to the non-Muslims over the Muslims? With regards to the non-Muslims that help Muslims, that may even help Islam, the dawah of Islam, they may have better character than some Muslims, who treat Muslims better, people better, etc. Me personally, I wouldn't necessarily say those words, give precedence to the kuffar over Muslims. Even though it could be valid in practice, but theory, I wouldn't necessarily say those words. Such as your mother, who's a non-Muslim. I have to go pick up my mother and take her to the hospital, or come and sit with a Muslim brother. Of course, you have to give precedence to what? Who's a non-Muslim. But I necessarily wouldn't make that statement precedence. But the practice could be valid. So what's important is that people have rights in the deen. They have rights. Your neighbor has a right over you. And there may be a time when a non-Muslim has a right greater than a Muslim. So a Muslim who's not a neighbor versus a non-Muslim who is a what? A neighbor. That's only based off of the text of Quran and Sunnah. Are you understanding this? So certain times this person gets special attention. Other times you say no. Islam, blood is thicker than water. It depends on the what? on the situation. Clear on that? That's in brief. As far as the second question, with regards to being a teacher of hadith, when do we accept the statement of a scholar who disparages another scholar or another person, etc.? The question is composed of two main concepts that we have to clarify, even in brief. In the sciences of hadith or pertaining to da'wah. Sciences of hadith, this is a trustworthy narrator. Imam Ahmad said, and Imam Yahya ibn Ma'in said about the narrator, when he heard about Imam Ahmad's statement, Junna ala Ahmad. He said Imam Ahmad is crazy for saying he's thiqah. And there is a real life example of this. Last time we were here in the dung beetle conference, we're not going to go back into that right now. Open up that can of worms. Even though the dung beetle still what? Still survives. The point is, that's a real life example in which Imam Ahmad made tawfiq of someone. He said he's trustworthy. And Ibn Ma'in said Imam Ahmad must be crazy saying that about him. And the point of mentioning that is to show you is that Imam Ibn Ma'in, he used his what? His intellect, his knowledge of the narrator, and he did not just submit to what? Keep in mind, who? Ahmed, Jabal, mountain. So that culture of this sheikh says it and it's absolute, that's total nonsense. He has the absolute statement. No, that's not Islam. That's not the Sunnah. That's not the way of the Salaf. That surely isn't the sciences of hadith. And alhamdulillah, we said this years ago. Years ago we made this statement, and we believe the same thing to this day. That culture of hero worshiping and blind following someone, and you have to be forced to take that statement. It's the only one. La. That's first and foremost. As far as when it comes to da'wah, when it comes to when do we take the statement of a scholar or someone who refutes someone, etc. That's a mess. That's a mess. And one of the reasons why it's a mess is that everybody that's being refuted and talked about is all connected and they have relations to each other. If you said all of the people in this city that are being refuted or refuting, how many of us would know each other, Abu Sajid? Everybody. Allahu Akbar. I was going to say 9 out of 10. Everybody, especially from the old school. You went to school with Fulan. I went to school with Fulan. His brothers played with each other. He played with my kids, his brother's wife. Everybody knows each other. So how can you just say, oh, we refute him for Allah's sake? Wallahi, I will not shake his hand. Indeed. But you... Come on, man. This is a joke. It's a game. And the proof that it's a game is that everybody, what? Something is clearly wrong. Was it like that with the Salaf al-Salih? The people they refuted and warned from? Were they friends and close companions with teachers and students? To show you that there's something more. Everyone understand this? That's the point I'm trying to get to. So if there's a scholar or a student of knowledge who warns from someone or some statement, and it's based off of clear proof in text, in science, maqbool, we accept it. We what? We accept it. But if there's a scholar who says something about someone without clear proof, without dalil, without science, we say what? We don't accept it. And even if the person is refuted or they make a mistake, what does that mean? What does that mean? You can't take from them. You can't learn from them. Okay, tell you. No problem. No problem. He made a mistake. That's the first puzzle. That's first one. Plus one. The Salaf, they do the type. So therefore, boycott and abandon. Okay, no problem. Not us. But what do you do when we point out your mistakes? With proof and evidence, recordings and information, you say you're attacking the Salafis.
Double standard.
You can't win. Before you refuted me and before you found my mistakes, I was what? No, what was I? The rule. I was a what? You guys didn't get the concept. Forget friends. Before we refuted Brother Mahdi and found his mistakes, or he went against the brothers, he was a what? No. 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 He was Salafi. So they found his mistakes, and now he's no longer Sahih. Okay, no problem. So now let's do it what? To you. They said you can't do that because you're attacking. Everybody understand that? You get it, sis? Just think about that for a second. That makes no sense. You ever thought about that? The last 20 years? That makes no sense. Or on a higher level, forget student of knowledge, a da'i, Philadelphia, wherever you go, overseas, they say Sheikh Fulan, he refutes Ahlul Bidah, he refutes, he's this, he's that. Don't you know that before he labeled this scholar a deviant and mubtadi', he was what? And then he found, whether it was right or wrong, he may be right in his criticism, but he took him from and made him an innovator. Everyone understand the game?
Yeah.
How it's played?
And then you went far, you go even deeper, you went far finding
That's another problem. And if a person makes a mistake, doesn't mean they're no good and no useful. The point is I'm trying to get to, we're not trying to discuss in detail, is that this goes to show you that it's a mess. And anything that's a mess can't be the deen of Islam. It's all over the place. You make up a rule, you make up a principle, you bring whatever you want to bring. And the deepest thing about the hypocrisy is this sheikh that was refuting and used against this and that. Now he's what? Something isn't right. We know that what? For sure, that something isn't right. As we explained before. Moving forward to the next question. You gotta start enough fitna, all right? Question says, K.A. Manchester, UK, ask Allah to preserve you, Sheikh. An individual does not pray the salah regularly, misses the salah intentionally. He says his heart is dead spiritually. Get advice. Go to the doctor. Go to the doctor. Learn the Quran. Listen to the Quran. Sit in the masjid. Make tawbah. Make dhikr. Go make hajj. Go make umrah. Revive your heart. Ask Allah to purify you. You're sick? Go get help. If you know that you're sick, you know that you need help, then do what? Go get help. It's just that simple. Next question. Question says, Assalamu alaikum Mufti. I was wondering if it is allowed to approach a woman like in a polite way. Also, what should one do to get to know the woman if they have no sisters that could check up on her? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as it's done, as you said, respectfully. Would you like to get married, sister? Can I have your wali's number, your father's number? That's respectful. If somebody asked my daughter that, I wouldn't take it as an offense. As long as it's done what? With respect. Now you hawking her down and staring at her and complimenting her on how she's dressed and following her, and that's a different story. But if you ask in an honorable, dignified way, it's nothing wrong with that. And there are hadiths to support that. In which a righteous woman can present herself to a righteous man. That's in brief. Next question says, K.A. from Manchester, UK. I ask Allah to preserve you. It says, Sheikh, what about my question? Scroll up. Type. I'm sorry, Akhi. YT, Indianapolis, is it upon your parents to choose what you study in a university? Not necessarily. They can give you advice, they can help you out, but it depends who's paying. Say what? We say in the streets what? Cash rules. That's simple. So if they're paying for it, there lies no doubt. They want what?
So you way to go.
And this is the problem with masjids. Masjids that have fancy and superly duperly organized boards of administration normally have the most chaos. Because when I'm involved, I'm giving my money, I'm a sponsor, I'm on the board, I want to have a what?
Say so.
And I want to dictate, I want to have a vote, I want to be able to control what goes on. Now I want to invite my speaker, and I'm going to do it this way and that way. That's the human being. If they put in money, they put in their own, they automatically feel entitled to what? Dominate and to dictate. That's human what? Human nature. So if your parents are paying for your education, then of course they want to, want to dominate. But obviously that's not the best way. Okay, if you're a father or a mother, you don't necessarily have to control your child and tell them everything. You can suggest things. You can recommend things to them. La best. If it's something harmful that they want to study, of course you say, no, son, you can't study that. And if you want to study that crazy stuff, I'm not paying for it. That's the responsibility of the parent. But oftentimes we have control problems. Okay, you can give advice, you can steer, you can guide. It doesn't always have to control and dominate. And sometimes that pushes the child, the student, away from being successful because they rebel. I never wanted to be a painter. I never wanted to be an athlete. I never wanted to be an engineer. So we have to be mindful of that. Allahu Alam. Next question says, and what is the best thing to do if you want to study Islamic studies, but your parents say you have to study medicine? Best thing to do when it's raining is to let it rain. Let it rain. You want to study Islam? Your parents say you have to study medicine? Do what? Study Islam. It's that simple. You think the ulama didn't have to go through things? You think all of the ulama, their parents and their family members wanted them to study? Not necessarily. Sometimes you have to go against the grain. And perhaps later on they will thank you. And perhaps they'll be appreciative and be proud of you. And when they die, you make dua for them. and all of the classes that you teach and the things that you do, perhaps it'll be sadaqah for them. So the best thing to do is to just do it. Study Islam, okay? Your parents may be upset, they may be angry, but it doesn't mean it's haram. It doesn't mean that you're disobeying them. It doesn't mean that you have to obey them in what you choose to study, as we just said. And we've explained this many classes. With regards to your parents wanting something and you wanting something, and if you want knowledge, you have to aggressively take it. You cannot just sit back. It's not going to be presented to you on a silver platter. You have to be aggressive. And sometimes I'm going to say it, may Allah forgive me if I say something wrong, but when it comes to seeking knowledge and being successful, sometimes you have to be ruthless. I'm talking from experience. It's the only way. Because you live in a world surrounded by ignorance. You live in a world surrounded by ignorant people. You live in a world in which Ahlul Dunya dominate policy. So sometimes you what? You have to be what? Sometimes. Spiritually, this is a reality.
Please give examples about
Moving forward, no time. PJ from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Initials MSA. Great greeting to Sheikh Mufti Munir and to the Hadith disciples. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless and accept the good work that you are doing. Ameen. Ameen. Jazakallah khairan. Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. What name would you give for a future Hadith disciple? It depends, boy or girl. Which one? Assalamu alaikum from the Netherlands. Is there a Q&A today? Assalamu alaikum, post Hadith. I think these are all the questions from the live stream. It says, I ask Allah to preserve you, Sheikh. I have hopes and aspire to become a muhaddith of our era. Any advice? Yeah. Like I just said, be aggressive, be ruthless. You want it, seek Allah's help, and take it. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Sheikh Al-Albani, you don't think he had problems with his parents? You don't think he had people discriminated against him because he was Albanian and not Arab? You don't think he had problems because his skin was fair and white and their skin was brown or wheat or dark? You don't think he went through problems? You don't think he went through wars because he says that you can't follow a madhab or you shouldn't? You don't think he went through issues? And he did what? He had to do what he had to do. And that's why his name is mentioned and extolled to this what? To this day. That's the best advice I can give you, and Allah knows best. Question says, Shifa E from Munich, Germany. Is the view that Azhar wasn't Ibrahim's father, Azhar, a valid view? Some ulama say this in the tafsir. When Abraham said to his father, Azhar, do you take idols besides Allah Azza wa Jal? Some other people knowledge, they say that was a title. And it wasn't actually his name. What tangible benefit did we get from it? His father was a mushrik, that's for sure. And Ibrahim debated with him, that's what? For sure. That's the most important aspect. But the debate is a debate that's mentioned by the ulama of Islam in tafsir. Some say yes and some say no. Question says, so they say that the obligation of slaughtering the chickens is the biggest beast ain't the same. I don't know what that is. Assalamu alaikum says here, what about my question? Scroll up. My 14-year-old told me that she doesn't believe in Allah. What am I to do? Make dua for Allah to guide her. Make dua make dua for her and sit down and talk with her. Ask her the question, why don't you believe in Allah? What makes you discard what I've taught you, your religion? And evaluate yourself. Maybe it's something that you did. Maybe something that you said, but have a critical discussion with her. And I wouldn't say that you should necessarily immediately kick her out and banish her. Not yet. Don't be too hasty. She may be crying for attention. She may have a mental issue. Allahu Alam. Take your time, discuss. Give it some time, have a little sabr, and see what's the core of the problem. Wala hawla wala quwwata illa billah. And I'll protect our children from that. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. My mom is a takfir, and she believes that all other Muslims who aren't takfirs not be Muslims, and she always asks me to become takfir. What advice do you give me? Or what do you advise me? Perhaps she means takfiri. I don't know him. The concept of takfir and takfiri and who's a takfiri, etc. is a very long discussion. The bottom line is that in the Quran and the Sunnah, the concept of tafsir is established. Is that there are people who say La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah and they will leave the deen. You cannot reject it. That's in the Kitab and the Sunnah. Also, point number 2, summarized, the point of calling a Muslim who is a sinner to be a kafir is established in the Quran and the Sunnah that you are not to do that. That you are not to do that. The third point is the confusion. And that is, and we're going to speak the truth, bi'idhnillah. People say, I don't know about your mother or those people, but people they say, let's say for example, this brother, they say he's a kafir. Right? And then you come along, you say, astaghfirullah, akhi. You can't say he's a kafir, Imam Ahmad, Ahl Sunnah, we don't make takfir of the Qibla, etc. No problem. Imam Ahmad said that. The Salaf said that. The text of the Quran and Sunnah clearly say that. But why did I call him a kafir? Did I say he's a kafir because he drinks alcohol? He's a fornicator, he's an adulterer? Or did I say he's a kafir because he said the Quran is incomplete? I say he's a kafir because he says that there's things missing out of the Quran. Deeper than that. I said he's a kafir because he's not ruling with the Sharia. What are the details of that? We're not to discuss that. But the point is, I'm not making him a kafir based off of a what? A sin. Mixing oranges and apples are two different things. I'm saying that he's a kafir because of aqidah based off of Quran and Sunnah. I could be wrong, I could be what? Right. Listen carefully. I could be what? Wrong or right. But I'm not saying he's a kafir because of what? Sin. That's the error. And there lies no doubt there are many people today who are extremists on both sides. They make takfir on people because of sins, which is wrong. They make takfir on people because of aqidah issues, which they're wrong and mistaken. And there are other people who just broad brush takfir. And that's an extremism, and that's a long discussion called al-murji'ah, irja'. Those who have mistakes in iman, and what is and what isn't iman. And that's why the ulama, they say you cannot understand the way of the Khawarij until you understand the way of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah with regards to what is iman. What is iman? And does iman go and come? Does it rise? Does it fall? You can understand the Murji'ah and the way, the batil of the Murji'ah unless you understand the correct way of what? Ahlul Sunnah regarding iman. Everyone understand this? So many people, they mix and they match things. And this is the reality. Okay? If I have to be sacrificed or martyred for making a statement, then so be it. So be it. They may say Ahlul Sunnah, Salaf al-Salih, Salafiyah, but you sit them down and discuss their actual, what they believe, they are Murji'ah. And if they're not cold, hardcore Murji'ah, they have elements of irja'. They have traces of it, whether they realize it or not. Whether they're sincere or not. So there is a balance. To say a Muslim is a kafir for smoking and drinking is what? Wrong. To say a Muslim is a kafir because he doesn't pray. A Muslim is a kafir because he's killing Muslims. A Muslim is a kafir because of this or this, a theological issue. That's not necessarily automatically what? Wrong. Clear on this? And just because you say you're Salafi or Ahlul Sunnah and you call someone a takfiri doesn't mean that they don't have names and terms for you. Everyone understand this? Perhaps the one who's making takfir on this person is really on the way of what? Ahlul Sunnah. And you may be on another made-up methodology. Everyone understand this? That's all I'll say on the issue. So we have to be careful and mindful of that. Right, moving forward, before we stop, it says here, if she is a takfiri and she's incorrect in a takfir, give her advice. Read her the kalam of the ulama, the Quran and the Sunnah that talks about Muslims. Allah says, the thief, cut the hand of the thief. If the thief was an apostate, Allah will say, put him to death. Stealing is a major sin. Allah said it. Allah said it. Hadith says the thief is cursed. The thief is cursed. It's a major sin to steal. And if it's a major sin, based off of that batil aqidah, then a person will be a kafir. But Allah says, faqta'u, He says, cut their hands. Jadilhum billati hiya ahsan. Allah says, debate with them in the best manner. Ilm, deen. Allah knows best. That's in brief. Question says, JW from Washington, D.C. Assalamu alaikum. Rahmatullah. Was Mufti rocking the Wallabies over the weekend? And the conference took me back. LOL, barakallah feek. Wa feekum barakallah. I didn't wear the Wallabies this weekend. They're in the house. They had some polo boots. It's a little rainy outside, a little cold outside, but the Wallabies will come back out. And the different flavors, what? The Wallabies. Different colors, what? Blue cream, suede. Gum salt, what? There's what? There's different flavors of Wallabies. May Allah bless you. It says, I'm a college student. I see pious sisters getting hooked up with the worst boys of the class. I feel really bad. Is there anything I can do? Adino nasiha. Give advice. He from among you who sees an evil, let him change it with his what? With his hands. If he can't, with his hands, speak out against it. And it's not anything hard. Try. Give them advice. But make sure that you're not jealous and envious. Make sure that your intentions are what? Sincere and pure. It says here, how was my question being bypassed? Am I ghostwriting? I don't know about that. H.A. from New York, New York. If I'm currently doing Arabic studies and Quran memorization and I also want to deeply go to your classes, but I don't have time to do both, what should I do? Study the Quran in the Arabic language and watch our classes later on. Initial is M.H. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Melissa from Texas. What do you think? It's a personal question about an issue of marriage, nothing to do with a question. Assalamu alaikum. Say, brother, I'm married to a Christian and I converted after we were 2 years deep. How do I carry on with the supporting her holidays while not compromising my deen? Thanks, bro. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Even though the city is not mentioned, and the rule is that you have to mention your city, we'll make an exception here. You don't carry out her holidays. You don't celebrate her holidays. No. And recognizing and acknowledging her holidays is compromising, as we have explained. And Thanksgiving and Halloween, explain this. These pagan holidays are not from the deen of Islam, and Allah surely knows best. Manchester, UK, KA, I ask Allah to preserve you, Sheikh. Should the Imam turn around after the obligatory prayers and face the people? I heard it's only after the Fajr and Asr. Is this correct? He should turn around and face the people after he says the basic adhkar. Allahumma anta salam wa minka salam, tabarak ya dhal jalali wal ikram. Then turn around and face the people. Question, elaborate differences of opinion on chicken or birds not being considered bigger animals, so they don't have to be slaughtered like larger beasts. Okay, that's the sister, Shahid Hamoud Ham. Al-Muhim, the concept of meats being slaughtered in the United States and other than the United States is a very long discussion. Me personally, I have several books on the topic, in Arabic and in English, let alone the ayats of the Quran and the Hadith and the traditional explanations. What's important is, I wouldn't advise for you to eat anything unless you have some type of assurance or guarantee that it is halal or kosher. I would not advise you to eat from KFC and McDonald's and Burger King at all. Any meat from those places. I do not consider it to be permissible. I consider it to be haram and dead meat, meta. It's not slaughtered in the proper manner, and the discussion is not the discussion of Jew or Christian. Once more, it's apples and oranges. It's not about Jews or Christians, even though someone can make an argument. And someone can say that America is not a Christian country. And someone can say that even if it's a Christian country, the people working in this factory are not necessarily Christians. Someone pressing a button or hitting is not a Christian. That's one argument. But for argument's sake, it is a Christian country. It's not about Christian or Jew. It's about the manner of slaughtering. If there's a brother whose name is Abdul Rahman or Abdul Wahab, and he bangs the animal upside his head with an axe or a pole axe, or he electrocutes it or he shocks it, the meat is what? Haram. Even he's a Muslim who prays. Do not mix oranges and what? Apples. Now obviously in America, there are many brothers who take the view of some fatwas that they get. Let's say the fatwa of Sheikh Abdul Aziz ibn Baz, rahimahullah, which he clearly mentioned about Ahlul Kitab. And people came before him mentioned regarding this. But did Sheikh bin Baz, rahimahullah ta'ala, live in America? Did he travel to America? This is reality now, guys. I'm not discrediting anybody. But did he mean that you can go into a place in which you know they're not slaughtering it properly? And which is illegal to take a sharp knife against the throat of an animal inside the city of Philadelphia. And if you want to slaughter an animal, you have to do what? And the slaughtering with a sharp knife is inhumane, it's unhygienic, it is against efficiency. We have 1,000 animals to cut. 1 million people served at McDonald's, 1,000 customers. Does Sheikh bin Baz mean that you live in a Catholic country in which the asl, the default, is not to slaughter according to Sharia? I don't think that Sheikh bin Baz meant that at all. At all. I do not think that. I do not believe in my heart that that's what the Sheikh meant. That you can go into KFC and McDonald's and eat that meat. That you know in your heart has been electrocuted and shot and hung and tortured. You know that. And the proof for that is media. The proof is in the pudding. The policies of how they're slaughtered is transparent. So I don't think that's what the Sheikh meant, okay? All right? Let alone the fact that the concept of yani, like I said before, some ulama they say that the asl of the United States and other countries, the asl is that the meat is haram, and it's no longer the asl that is halal. They said it's no longer the asl, and that's because not are they Jews and Christians, and that's a long discussion. As I said, are they really Jews and Christians? What do they believe in? What is their aqidah? Let alone the fact that what? The asl of killing animals is what? It's done manually, electronically, automatically. It's not done in an old-fashioned way. So how can you say that's the what? The asl. Rather, anyone with common sense will say that the asl is the opposite. That the meat is haram until what? Proven to be cut with the sharp knife. Whether it's a chicken, a cow, a buffalo, or any animal, large or small. Now, there are some fuqaha of today who give an exception, certain exceptions, and certain leniency to smaller animals. Yes, they do. There are some who give certain leniency. The amount of blood, how fast a thing dies, the amount of meat. You'll find this, but it's not that simple. They're not saying that the chicken that's put in ice cold water or electrically shocked is permissible just because it's a small chicken. And a goat or a sheep or a cow, they're not saying that as well. So we have to be mindful, and we know that there's an etiquette of following, and there's an etiquette of taking a fatwa. There's an etiquette. You can't just take whatever you want to take, how you want to take it. There's a way of interpreting the fatwa and understanding the fatwa. And it's not sufficient to just translate a fatwa. That's insufficient in general, let alone in 2018. 20 years ago, perhaps that's the best the brothers could do. No disrespect. That was the what? The best that they could do. Not in what? Not in 2018. No. It's a new breed of imams and du'at and students. That's a new breed. Brothers who have studied and graduated and finished and learned. And they've debated these issues in Mecca in detail. How can you say that you just translated? Nah. Maybe in the 90s it was like that. The sheikh said and that's it. I'm a translator. No. Tayyib. That's all the questions that we're going to take from the live stream tonight. Question from the sisters: is it from our way as Muslims for a parent to kick their child out of the home if the child says they're homosexual? Please go back to the khutbah that we did last spring and UMM Masjid called the Easter Offensive. The Easter Offensive, in which we explained the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas and Sahih Bukhari that the Prophet ﷺ cursed men who imitate women and cursed women who imitate men. And what is mentioned from the Sahaba and Umar radiallahu anhu and other companions about kicking people out of the house. فَأَخْرَجْنَا فُلَانًا وَفُلَانًا. We kicked such and such out, we kicked such and such out. And they were not necessarily homosexuals. They weren't necessarily sodomites. They weren't necessarily lesbians. But they were men that were overly feminine. They were women that were overly masculine. And as we have explained in that khutbah in detail, is that if Allah creates a person in a certain way, that's not necessarily their fault, but it is their duty and their job to fight it and to go against the grain and to learn manliness. It is your duty as a sister to learn how to be a lady and to be feminine and to get rid of that natural type of nature of being like a man. And obviously that's subjective and that's relative. That's what? Subjective. You go overseas, women they don't necessarily have gym. They consider women who play gym to be masculine. Women who wear boots, they consider them to be what? Could you imagine that in Philly? Sisters, they wear what? Timbs. They may kick you with the Timbs. Stop you with the Timbs. I don't understand this. But you go to certain countries in the Far East, a woman wear boots, they consider what? They consider it to be like a butch. Pants. A woman who wears pants, they consider what? Masculine. So that's subjective. But in our culture, there is a girl who's born and she's a natural tomboy. She's rough and tough. Her punches hurt. She's tougher than your son. And she wants to be like a boy. She wants to wear loose pants and boots and things like this. The ulama have saying, they say it's obligatory for her to do what? Fight her asl. You understand this? So this is a very important concept of LGBTQ. They say, God made me like this. What's my sin? Your sin is that you want to be like that. Your sin is that you're not trained, you're not making jihad of your nafs. God made me a thief. Will you allow me to take your money? God made me a fornicator. I love women. I lust for women. Let me sleep with your daughter and your wife. Would you allow that? God made me a very violent and aggressive man, so I'm going to punch you in your face. Would you allow that? Yes or no?
No.
Of course not. They would say you have to do what? Control yourself. You got to work on your temper. And the same applies to what? Don't understand this? Let alone transgender. You have to accept us, accept us. How can I accept you and you can't even accept yourself? You can't accept the way that you were made, but I have to accept what you do to yourself. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make what? It doesn't make sense. So therefore, a homosexual is one thing. So if a feminine person was kicked out of the house, or a masculine person was kicked out of the house, then what do you think about an actual what? Homosexual. But like we gave the advice with regards to the sister, the young sister who says she's not a believer, waliyadhu billah, give nasiha. Talk with them, speak with them, find the core. It may be a problem, maybe an issue. We're not living in an Islamic state. We're not living in an Islamic environment. The masjid, the biggest masjid in Philadelphia, is a trifle to some of the mediocre churches in Philadelphia. It's a what? A trifle. Some of the biggest masjids are nothing compared to some of the mediocre churches in Philadelphia. Let alone those grand churches. They've been there for years. We're not living in an Islamic environment. So you have to talk to your son or your daughter or your whatever. Speak with them. What's the problem? Why? What happened? Talk to them. And if they refuse and they want to be a homosexual and sleep with men and sleep with women, if it was me, I'll say, son, I love you, but Mahdi put up the peace sign. You can't stay under my roof. Allahumma musta'an wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah.
The other kids.
Allah, that's right. Allah shooting knows best. This is the end of our Q&A session. I'm so sorry. If we continue, we'll sit here until when? 12 a.m. And Mahdi got to go. That's the real reason why we stopped.
No, I don't know, but you gotta see me the first part.
Jazakumullah khairan.
6:30.
Peace out. Really, man, bro.